Welcome to everyone who's viewing tonight's program here at Senior Resources of Guilford, or virtually on the ACAP community website, the ACAP Guilford Facebook page, or our YouTube channel. We're so glad that you can join us tonight. For those of you who may not be familiar with who ACAP is, let me give you a very brief overview. At its core, ACAP Community is an educational 501c3 nonprofit organization that offers information, resources, support, and community for those of us who are caring for our aging parents. As you can tell from our name, our focus is on supporting adults as they care for their aging parents. However, all caregivers are welcome, whether you're an adult child, another relative, a friend, or a professional. Each ACAP chapter offers monthly programs that address issues related to aging, family dynamics, and adult-child caregiving. Presenters are experts on the topics they address, and many are or have been caregivers for their own parents or in-laws. We now have 6 chapters across the United States. ACAP Guilford meets each month on the third Thursday at 6 p.m. at Senior Resources of Guilford at 1401 Benjamin Parkway in Greensboro, and virtually on our Facebook page and the ACAP community
population is going to be over 65. I think we all know that, right? We all talk about societal aging. Well, society aging and the baby boomers aging really affects many dynamics, economics, family structure, retirement, the prevalence of chronic disease, and really the ability for government and communities to provide adequate resources to meet the aging of America. And among the fastest growing population is the segment of the older population that's growing the fastest is those that are 85 or older. And why is that important? Because generally they're the ones that need the most care. They're the ones that need the most support. So another trend that is important is the majority of family caregivers remain women. We're not surprised by that, are we? And they tend to provide more hours of care than their male counterparts. So why is that important? Well, 60% of adult women now work outside of the home. And later births often mean that the adult son or the adult daughter caregiver are really in the peak of their career in terms of earnings, in terms of achievement, because the average age of caregivers is 49. And when we talk about the amount of time that is spent providing unpaid care for loved ones that you don't live with, it's almost 24 hours a week. And when we do live with the care recipient, it can be about 37 and a half hours per week. Does that sound like another full-time job? Yes, it sounds like another full-time job. Another phenomenon that is growing is, and common already today, is that family members tend to live far away from one another. And there's a survey that in 2020 that found that 11% of family caregivers fit this definition. Basically meaning that if you are like an hour or so away, like if a visit is just difficult, if it's considered an hour or so away, you're considered a long-distance caregiver. Anyone long-distance caregiving? Okay, so that can provide many challenges if you're like the primary caregiver and you're trying to long-distance caregive, or it could be that with the dynamic of families living apart, that you are caregiving for a family member in your own home, but the rest of the family support is long distance. It makes it very challenging. Is there anything, we'll get to a lot of the challenges, and are you employed as well?
Yes.
So you're right in the heart of this conversation. So as I talk about some of the challenges that are generally commonly known to be faced, please tell us if this rings true to you, because it really is, long distance caregiving is definitely going to continue to increase. So let's look at some healthcare trends that are noteworthy, okay? Increased longevity, incidence of chronic disease and comorbidities. So again, with increased longevity, we might be caregiving longer, right? And for someone, for example, who's caregiving for a loved one, a parent with dementia, it could be 4 years. It could go to 8 years. It could be as long as 20 years. It's an unpredictable pattern. Okay, so it's very important, and we're also looking at comorbidities. We could be looking at arthritis, stroke, congestive heart failure, again, a memory impairment. So it really is important that we're recognizing the incidence is increasing of that. And as I talk about dementia caregiving, and that's my world, in my work, but the prevalence of Alzheimer's and other related dementias is just growing. I mean, we know that. So just to share this fact, 2021 Alzheimer's Association Facts and Figures report estimates that the number of seniors with Alzheimer's disease is going to grow from 6.2 in 2021 to 12.7 by 2050. That just means that we're going to have an increase in demand for care. We already have a demand for care, and it's just going to increase. Anyone have a loved one who had a hospital stay and then they get discharged home with a whole lot of tasks that you're not prepared to tackle? So there's been a lot of information out that the scope of activities that caregivers offer, we might be thinking of, getting dressed, helping your loved one during meal times, in the restroom, with a bath. Maybe you're doing things like just helping with finances, right? There are times when you are providing some very complex medical tasks. It could be, just managing a whole lot of medications and their interactions and side effects. Some are doing wound care, like IVs and injections, okay? Anybody have any experience with that, with a hospital stay being, not as long as you would expect? And then all of a sudden, you're not only like family caregiver, you're like, nurse. And it's really presents a challenge, especially if you're working. You have small children to take care of. You have your own well-being that needs to be tended to. This is all like, it's really challenging. So it's important to talk about all of these trends and put this in like a picture as we talk about juggling, right? Doing this Juggling Act. So we throw this word around, right? Balance, work-life balance. What does balance mean to you? Anyone want to give a sense of whether it's a definition or it's a feeling? What does balance mean to you personally? And I'm not taking on anybody. Do you think that if you have all these areas in your life, like family, meaningfully connecting with other people, having fun, going to social outings, having your spiritual needs met, having your passions fulfilled, maybe you want to work on a skill or a talent that you have, do you think it's possible that they're all equally represented all the time? Is that balance? Is that even possible? I'm not sure it's even possible. So maybe that's not what balance is. But until we really have a thought about, well, what does balance mean to me? It's hard to achieve it, right? So does it sound like maybe balance would feel like a sense of control over your day? What other feelings might you think about if you have balance? I did this talk once before and someone said I would just laugh because it will never happen. But what kind of feeling?
Taking a breath, being able to just take a breath.
Just being able to take a breath. We're going to talk about that later when we talk about relaxation techniques, like just take a deep breath. Who does that? We have to almost be told, like, everybody take a deep breath. We don't do it naturally or organically. Does it feel like a sense of calm, right? A sense of maybe you have stability. So I'm just want to have you be mindful that it's important to think about, well, what does this even mean? Because it could mean that, well, I don't have time to tend to X, Y, Z, but I still feel some semblance of balance because this is where I am in the stage of my life. I work, I have small kids, I take care of my parents, and I get a little bit of fun in there. I feel like it's balanced enough. But if you don't feel like each area is balanced enough, it's time to make some type of action plan to say which area needs more energy and which area am I giving too much energy to, and it's sapping me of my resources, right? This is a whole nother class I could talk about for like an hour or so, but so I've said my thing about what it means to you. So the biggest challenges that working caregivers have shared, according to the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers. There's 5 things that were really highlighted as these are the challenges. Well, it's emotionally stressful. Does that make sense? It's too much, right? I'm overwhelmed. And then, well, it's too time consuming because how many hours are there in a day? And we wish there were more because it's too time consuming to get everything done to feel like satisfied. And then self-care, right? Again, I could talk to you all night about the importance of self-care. Does anyone feel like they adequately take care of themselves? Right? Because maybe it does for them.
I think also the feeling of I ought to be able to
Yeah.
handle this, or I ought to be able to have this, or do this, or I shouldn't be angry or upset that this is happening. You know, all the oughts and shoulds that come.
That is a great point, right? It's the like regrets or some of the I should be, am I doing enough? I'm not doing, am I doing too much? Like, and then we start with the guilt. Yeah, that's real. Thank you for sharing that. That is for sure another point. So I want to just talk briefly about this, and we're not going to belabor this issue, but most caregivers who are employed, adult children, face burnout at some point. Okay, so have you ever heard about caregiver burnout before? A common experience is this pervasive sense that juggling work and caregiving has just become too much. It's just too overwhelmed. It's just too much. So let's just look at what burnout means, okay? It's a state of exhaustion in and of itself. Emotional, mental exhaustion. And the thing about burnout, and also another topic that you might have heard before is compassion fatigue, is that what brought you into caregiving in the first place, right? Love, compassion, wanting to make a meaningful difference in the life of your loved one and your family can turn to apathy and just disregard for what brought you to the caregiving role in the first place. It can put you at risk for chronic illness yourself because you're so run down and you're so stressed, and we're not taking the time to take care of ourselves. And then you're at risk for other issues, hypertension, stroke, depression, okay? And when this happens, if you are totally exhausted, what happens to the person you're taking care of? It really becomes a very unhealthy situation, right? So just some warning signs to look at. These are signs of caregiver burnout. Some of them kind of overlap with caregiver stress. Feeling like, you know, you're getting sick all the time, your immune system's weakened, a sense of just this all-encompassing fatigue. Even if you've had respite, even if you've had a break, you are just not refreshed. You're not at all re-energized. And even when help is there, you just can't relax. So you're like just always on the go. Mood swings, feeling hopeless. If your sleep pattern's changing, maybe you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep. Maybe it takes you forever to fall asleep. Just overall dissatisfaction with caregiving, with your work, feeling like everything's out of control, and we're not going to cope healthy. So we're going to use drugs and alcohol, maybe excessively, because we don't have coping strategies that are healthy. And the other thing is that other people have expressed concern about your well-being. And that might be tough to hear. But if others say, I'm worried about you, you are not yourself, right? You seem like you need some support. Do you want to talk about what's going on? Please just heed those words. So we talked about communicating, right? Being able to communicate your feelings. If someone talks to you and says what's going on, you seem like you're really overwhelmed. Communicating with family and friends is so important, but as we move into talking about workplace supports, you gotta talk to your employers, right? Communication is very important. It's one of the most best ways that you can air it out, everyone's on the same page, and you might get access to help that you didn't know you had. So I didn't write down the percentage, but it's not very high. The percentage of people who share with their employers that they are in a caregiving situation that is challenging them. So communication is very important. It can help you to just establish a routine. It can help you to establish a schedule. So talk to your human resource department. There are resources, there's alternate work options, there could be financial assistance. So communication is key. So let's look at some of the ways that were identified just not too long ago, again, by the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers. And they found that these supports were the most helpful. Well, paid time off, right? I mean, sometimes we are worried about taking time off because we need the income, okay? Has anyone ever looked at flexible scheduling? It could be that, like, let's say in your handbook at work, or your policies say, well, in this job, you must work a core hours of 10 to 3. Like, you have to be here during that time. Well, instead of working 9 to 5, maybe you work 10 to 6. Those are just talking about, can things be flexible, right? Can I work remotely? Can I reduce my full-time hours to part-time and maybe do some job sharing? We're not gonna know if we can do these things if we don't ask, right? Some companies even have specialized caregiver services. Maybe they will have like in-house lunch and learns. They'll bring in an expert to talk about caregiving issues. They might even have an in-house support group. You don't know unless like it becomes part of the conversation. And employee assistance programs. You familiar with like an EAP? Those are, to help you deal with a crisis, to help you deal with problems. And it is more important, I think, before the crisis happens. Don't wait for the, oh my God, I'm really in a bind here, to talk with your employer about what's going on. Any questions about that? There should be knowledgeable HR staff, team members at your workplace. Okay. It could be that you just need to leave work for a little while, right? You are like, it's not working to take off a little bit of time here, take off a little bit of time there. What if you're looking at maybe exploring services for your parent? Maybe you're looking at actually changing the entire living situation. You need to explore communities. It could be that you need to explore FMLA, the Family and Medical Leave Act. So I'm going to just share just a couple important parts about that, but then I really recommend you talk to your HR department if you have questions about FMLA. Companies with 50 or more employees must comply with FMLA. And those who are exempt from that, they have less than 50, they often use FMLA guidelines to help their team members, okay? It entitles you to get unpaid leave for 12 weeks. You don't have to worry about having your job, and you don't lose your insurance. And it is for caring for a spouse, a child, or a parent who has a serious health issue. It does not cover leave for taking care of an in-law. I didn't know that. So it does not cover taking care of an in-law. The U.S. Department of Labor's Family and Medical Leave Act Employee Guide can help determine your eligibility, or just go and talk to your HR team, okay? So now I want to spend time really talking about some of the tips that can really help you to find that elusive balance that we're talking about. And I mention it again because it's important. Communicate with your employer. Communicate. Don't wait for an emergency to bring it up, because then we're in a panic situation now, and we're probably not going to be able to make good decisions, and we're probably not going to be able to share the big picture and some of the goals and things that we can work through when we're really in a frazzled state. Getting organized. Now, getting organized, it could be that we're already organized, but we're so overwhelmed, right? We feel like we've got lists, we've got calendars, we've got, ways that we can tackle our tasks. But sometimes we aren't organized, and that's a first step. Just getting a calendar, getting a planner, looking at all the tasks that you have to do, as small as they might be, and prioritize them, because there are tasks you can delegate. There are tasks that you can say, you know what, not doing that. I am not going to have that unrealistic expectation of myself that all of this has to get done. So we're going to get organized, because it's not the time now to start. I can remember all of this in my head, right? That's years ago, and we could remember everything without jotting things down, without organizing. I had to make yourself a note to bring my laptop tonight. So it's okay to use tools to help you get organized. So having a daily routine. I think having a daily routine, I know this is so true for those who we work with who have memory impairment, but even for ourselves, it provides like a sense of security, right? When we have a routine that we can look to, we know what to expect. It gives us some type of control. And sometimes there's no routines when we're working, when we're caring for family members, when we're trying to meet our own needs. But sometimes we can create a semblance of morning, afternoon, evening. This is what we're going to aim to have the day look like. So there's lots of tools to help organize, whether it's getting access to help. Have you ever heard of Lots of Helping Hands? It's a tool to access, like have a collaborative partnership with family and friends so they can maybe help. It doesn't involve asking for help. We'll talk about that later too. And then also there's Care Zone, which helps organize health information and can help you access vital health services. So there is a wealth of apps and online resources, we'll talk about that a little bit later, to help you get organized if that's not your skill set. We all have things that we're great at. If you're not good at getting things organized, get help to get yourself organized. Maybe that's one of the things you can ask your HR department. I feel like I don't know how to organize my day. Help me organize my day. That would be so helpful if I can meet with someone who can give me tips on organizational skills. Does that all make sense? This is like a whole nother talk too. I'm cramming this all in, but does anyone have a backup plan? You know what I mean when I say create a backup plan? Sometimes, and I don't really like playing the what ifs game, but sometimes when we think about what if, okay, what if I'm at work and I'm supposed to bring my parents a meal, and now I see I've been working for hours, I haven't even looked outside, and we're in a snowstorm here and I'm in trouble. I'm not sure I'm gonna make it. That's a realistic thing that could happen for people who just dive into their work and they're not getting interrupted, and all of a sudden they realize what's happening outside. What if you just have a flat tire, right? What if the traffic is unexpected? So in those situations, when I say have a backup plan, it's good for you to think about who can I contact at a moment's notice, right? To help me balance this, to help me go, okay, I'm at work now, I need help with the other part, which is caregiving. So maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's someone who lives close by that can just provide some assistance. So it's good to be prepared maybe with like the routine of the person who you care for, their medications that they take. If they have memory impairment, maybe there's strategies to have them have a successful day, especially when they don't recognize someone maybe that is unexpected for caregiving. So we want to just gather some important information, which could be things like powers of attorney paperwork, the medication list, just some really important contacts, physicians, emergency numbers. Again, deciding who can be called on a moment's notice. If there is a situation, another what if could be, well, what if you are called unexpectedly to take an out-of-town trip at work? Now you're also in a situation where it could be days, right? So now we don't have just a little bit of like an hour, can you help with this situation? We might have days. So it's good to create a calendar of appointments, ongoing scheduled activities, so the person understands their role while they're coming in to potentially help your loved one. The other way that you can have a backup plan is if you are called away unexpectedly to care for your family member, do you have a backup at work? Is there someone that can maybe help you fulfill the tasks that you needed to get done by 5 o'clock and you're having to leave the office? So there's two ways to think about having a backup plan. You can have a backup plan to help you at work, and you can have a backup plan to help you in your caregiving. As I said earlier, it's so important to communicate. If we don't communicate, we don't get the help. We don't get it off our chest that we're struggling, right? It makes the burnout potentially all that more real because we just stuff it and we keep going and we keep going. Does anyone did anyone ever have a family meeting? Was it a good time?
No.
But was it necessary?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And have more tentatively scheduled to continue to make those decisions that we gotta make.
In order to get some type of balance might really mean I need help. I need for my family members to understand what it's like for me to take care of mom every day. And sometimes it's just laying the cards out on the table. And if anyone is interested in finding out some of the tips to have a successful family meeting, I can share that with you also later. Yeah, because there's so many things that you can discuss, but you really want to almost treat it like it's like a formal meeting. We're going to have an agenda, right? We're going to tackle the issues that need to be tackled, and we're not going to hopefully bring baggage from our family situation from 30 years ago. We're going to move forward, and we're going to try and find solutions. So, and you can really talk about negotiating the sharing of responsibilities, especially if you're the primary caregiver, or if you're a long distance caregiving and you're in a position where you need to get everyone on board. Do you mind me asking, do you have siblings?
Yes.
Are they in the network with you helping?
I have a sibling that is also here, so he's also long distance. And then I have another sibling, but he's not able to, he's actually closer, but he's not able to handle this, himself.
Emotionally?
Yes.
Okay. And sometimes you can work to get mom or closer. And that, that's another fact that is a trend and a shift is that, I don't know what the percentage, but it is high, everybody. People want to stay at home. They want to stay at home. That's your problem.
Yes.
So you want to drag parent, and they want to stay at home.
And both of my parents have dementia.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah. Whew, that's very challenging because if you're at work, if you're here, if you are wherever, your mind is always gonna just be going, please, I don't want to get that phone call, or what if, right? So hopefully in your situation, we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can get some help when you're long distance caregiving, but hopefully you have that group that you can say, a neighbor, like, can you just check and make sure that there's a light on in the house,
Yeah.
is everything going on okay, right?
Yes.
But that's not uncommon to have parents that have memory impairment and they are adamant that they're aging in place.
I've got a mom who's in IL, independent living, but she needs to be in either AL or she needs caregivers to come in, and she doesn't want that.
Right.
It doesn't think she needs it.
That's what I'm going through too. They don't think they need to.
Oh, no,
Yes.
no, she doesn't need her rollator. She will use the cane, and she doesn't want anybody in her house or in her apartment.
Oh, that's a whole nother challenge. No, won't let anybody in.
Right, at this point. So we are in that process right now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and you're trying to help. You just want you want them to be safe.
Right.
And as independent as possible. But it's hard when you're constantly met with, no, not gonna do it. Not gonna be able to do it.
They don't want that help, or that's what they say. That's
Yeah.
what they push back and say, I don't want that thing, I don't need it.
I
Yes.
can't afford it.
Or, I can't afford it.
That's what they say, yeah.
We can't afford that.
Yes. Also, let's go. Okay. Just some more tips. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Do you feel like sometimes you have unrealistic expectations of yourself? Like we're not always kind to ourselves and we just think we can do everything.
We're not supposed to do everything? Are you saying we're not supposed to do everything?
And you do everything and you do everything and you do everything to a point where you're just like, I'm underwater now and I don't want to do anything. I don't, and that's the burnout, that's the compassion fatigue, that's scary. That's a bad place to be. So trying to be realistic, right? We all have goals, realistic goals, or the unrealistic goals. We have limitations. Do you really want to agree to be in two places at one time? Tell your employer, sure, I'll be there at that meeting, and then tell your, sure, I'll be there to take you to the appointment. In the short run, everyone's happy, but that is not realistic, right? And I'm saying this again, communicating and having the family meeting. And we talked. Someone mentioned this earlier about being interrupted, or I said it earlier. Okay, so you're interrupted at work. Oh, that's what it was. One of the 5 major challenges: being interrupted at work with caregiving issues. Does that happen to anyone? The phone. It's not. I don't know if this is going to be difficult. My tip is that when you can get a phone call. For example, I will answer the phone when a crisis arises. Now we have to define what a crisis is. It could be the same as your recipient crisis. But I'm saying also that sometimes if you have someone from home care, does anyone have trouble asking?
No.
It's so hard for some people. Not a hard problem. If you're they don't know what to do. Sometimes be ideas will be helpful. Okay, some more tips. Do you guys know what your signs of stress are? Because you might not even know that you're to your limit of stress. And in order to find balance, we need to know if we're really at our point here. Do you know what your warning signs of stress are? Anybody? Some don't know what their warning signs of stress are. So it could be, for example, that your head hurts, your shoulders are tense, your back hurts, your eyes. So it's physical, right? We have these physical manifestations of stress. I feel myself getting warm, so I'm getting anxious, right? Like sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes we're very irritable. We have mood swings. We cry. Sometimes it's all the above. Sometimes it's behaviors, right? We don't make good decisions. We turn to other ways of coping that aren't healthy. So it's important to know what balance is for you. It's important to know what your signs of stress are, and it's important to know how do I reduce my stress? Sometimes we have no idea, right? We have no idea because my way of reducing stress might be very different from yours. And
So eating a whole carton of ice cream is not a good option?
I like that option. I like the ice cream option. For example, I've said this before, some people really love getting their hands in the dirt and they want to garden. And to me, no thank you. That's not relieving my stress. That's not doing anything to calm me. I want to do something different. So practicing self-care. I could talk to you guys all night about practicing self-care. Who has good self-care practices? Is there anything you do that you could say, first of all, everybody who's watching and who is here, you're practicing self-care right now. You are here, you're with other people, you're learning, right? You're hopefully going to get some further resources. You now know about ACAP Guilford County. So you're practicing self-care right now, everybody. Pat yourselves on the back. But it really involves a lot of things. There's so many parts of ourselves that need to be energized. Our physical self-care, do we eat right? Do we rest, right? Do we have communication about our feelings? Do we express our feelings? All that stuff, all that self-care is not just about eating right. There's so many ways that we need to tend to our self-care. And there's relaxation techniques out there. Deep breathing, meditation, guided imagery, progressive muscle relaxation. You can find this anywhere on YouTube. And sometimes it can help us to just relax our minds and think about anything other than what's stressing us out. When we talked about asking for help, does anyone have a hard time saying no? So one thing I will say when you are trying to achieve balance is you're going to have potentially family or friends ask you for your precious time if you want to maybe go see a movie, or maybe you have that evening. Well, you're free. Why don't we go have dinner together? And you might find that that's going to sap you of your precious energy that you have left, and you just want to sit home and maybe read or pet your dog, or you want to go shopping by yourself. It's okay to say no when someone asks you even to do something fun. I'm not even talking about saying no to tasks that you go, no, I don't have time for that. That's hard enough in and of itself. But it's hard to say no when someone, a friend or a family member, asks you to do something. It's okay to say no, thank you, maybe next time. And yeah.
I've learned no is a complete sentence. No explanation needed.
I like that.
And I'm hanging on to that.
And
Yes.
I feel like maybe, I don't speak for everyone, it gets easier in a way to say no as you get older.
Yes.
I think, because you know what's important, you know what deserves your energy, what deserves your time, and sometimes it's easier to just be like, I just don't have it in me, no thanks, right?
I love that. That no is a complete sentence. Thank you. That's very, very helpful.
Yes, it is very
That's
helpful.
all
You don't
I
have to defend yourself.
Yeah.
No. Thank you for sharing that. No. Joining a support group, if you're a caregiver for an aging parent, for a spouse, for a friend, for a sibling, a niece, nephew, whatever, there are support groups so you can learn about resources and share your story and not feel like you're alone on this difficult journey, right? So I facilitate 3 support groups, and I can share that information with you in Guilford County. But we laugh, we cry, we share, we listen, we talk about resources, and it feels good to be in the company of people who nod and get it. Even when you say things that aren't very comfortable, that maybe someone else would kind of pause at, and you know what I mean? So support groups are a great resource. And lastly, I'm gonna end with talking about resources. Okay, I'm going to talk about resources. These are just if you are in a situation where you're caregiving at home, maybe you're worried about your family member not being active. Maybe they're lonely. Maybe they're sitting in front of the TV all day. Maybe they are not safe to be at home by themselves. You're a little worried about the safety now and about the stove. Are they going to, walk out of the house and get turned around? And these are very, very real concerns. So there are supports out there. There's home care. There's adult day services. There's group respite, right? It could be that you're at work, but your family member is like, I just want to get out and be social. But you're thinking, I have no way to get them there. I'm at work. I can't be at two places at once. There's transportation services. It's all about looking for resources. They're out there. Maybe you're worried about their food intakes. There's nutrition services. There are geriatric care managers, okay? They can help identify needs and find resources for you. And they're really helpful for someone who's long distance caregiving because they can kind of be the eyes, right? And say, this is, I'm checking in on your loved one, and they give the person living long distance some peace of mind. And lastly, I'm gonna just kind of go through this a little quickly, but caregivers now have so many, through apps, through websites, through devices. Technology is like booming. They are taking caregivers into account as being a very big audience for technological advances that can help, so that maybe you can access an online chat or a support group or a Facebook group, right? There's information through the Family Caregiver Alliance. That's a great resource, the Family Caregiver Alliance, if you want to check out that website. But they have a navigator program that offers information on resources. Have you ever heard of the National Elder Care Locator? Great resource providing information, and the website and the phone number is available. And if you live long distance, or you just don't live with your care recipient and you're worried about their safety in the home, there's ways to monitor them, right? And we want to be sure we're all on the same page about that and making sure it's not an invasion of privacy, but it's also looking at, I have peace of mind when I'm at work just knowing that you're safe. You can do visits and telemedicine. All of that can be done virtually, so you don't have to worry about getting someone to a doctor's appointment, making the appointment, getting them to the appointment. Now we can do it in a telemedicine way. And there's also, if you're concerned about medications and keeping up with them, and perhaps someone who has dementia getting lost, there's devices through different there's Project Lifesaver. There's different technology that can let you know where your loved one is. So I hope that you have an opportunity to just kind of digest all of this. This was a lot of information, but there's lots of ways. I want you to keep it personal to yourself. Think about, how do I find balance? What does it mean to me? How do I know I'm stressed out? Can I talk to my family and friends? Do I want to have a family meeting, right? And I just want you to know that we appreciate you so much. Family caregiving is very, very challenging. It comes with lots of rewards, but it really takes its toll, as I said in the beginning. So we appreciate you as caregivers, and I thank you for allowing me to share some time with you. Thank you again to ACAP for letting me be with you all. And I'm available later if you just have some questions.
I can't thank Jody Collado enough. How about you? What a tremendous amount of information you gave us, but in such an accessible way. I know we are going to go away with a lot of ideas about how to balance our lives a bit better. Special thanks again to our sponsor, the Age Coach. Our program next month will be on Thursday, September 21st at 6 p.m. right here at Senior Resources of Guilford in Greensboro and online. Please come to learn about running on empty. Caregiver compassion fatigue. I'm sorry, I got myself a little lost. Running on empty, caregiver compassion fatigue, which will be presented by Caroline Oxford of Hospice of the Piedmont. If you'd like to be notified about our upcoming programs, please like us on our Facebook page at ACAP Guilford, or register for any upcoming program on our website at acapcommunity.org. Thank you for coming tonight, and good night.